Hello and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Swim Brief, where I promised on Tuesday I'd bring back my two usual Thursday guests for some melting hot takes. We're gonna take that slice of rye bread, okay? We're gonna put it on the frying pan. We're gonna chop it with some cheddar cheese, and that cheddar cheese is gonna be gooey and molten when you put it in your mouth. Joining me from Wisconsin, a state I hope to never visit in my life, Erik Weiken. How are you, Erik?
This state's too good for East Coast elitists. Doing all right, thanks.
Isn't that just a place you fly over in a plane on your way to some better
Nebraska.
state? Oh, okay.
That's Nebraska.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Joel's from Wisconsin too, so you're outnumbered.
Yeah. Well, luckily Shackelford's not going to listen to this one, so I could make all the Wisconsin jokes I want. He traveled in a time machine back to the set of Magnum PI. Joel Rawlings. Joel, nice palm trees.
I would live there every single day of my life if they allowed me to live with Higgins on that island. That'd be amazing. Yeah,
but in that time period,
you don't understand these references.
Who's Higgins?
Yeah, oh, hell yeah, that Ferrari. See, just never mind, man. That's a separate podcast.
Okay, so I've got a take prepared that I've already shared in our group chat. I've got a take that I want Joel to make because I'm too scared to make it myself, and I'd like to hide behind him. But I would also like the benefit of being associated with the take in case it comes true. And then I have no idea what Erik's about to say, but before we get into any of that, I want to apologize to Erik because when we did our trials preview, people know I record this podcast, edit it, put it up on the internet, and sometimes stuff gets left on the cutting room floor. Like I just listen to it and I go, that's not the best content. I don't think that is really going to make it. And I feel like I did a disservice to Erik in what I did in our pre-trials podcast. So I'm going to roll a little bit of tape and reinsert something that happened. This was from our pre-trials recorded podcast. So just give me a second. I'll play the tape. Hey, so Erik, any sort of off the wall predictions you want to make for who's going to make the team? Well, I actually think that Ryan White from Alabama is going to swim pretty fast. A lot of people are not predicting that she's going to make the team, but I just think if you look at it, like she's got a really good chance. She's been swimming really well, and that would be my pick. All right. So once again, I'm really sorry, Erik. You had Ryan White making the team, and I cut it out. Is my apology accepted or what?
Yeah, that.
You sound a little different in the clip than you normally do. Yeah.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close. There must be some weird upload problems that you're having that's altering my voice.
Yeah, it's probably the compression on the audio. It never sounds quite the same as live. But anyway, it's I guess better late than never to find out that you had. Is it Ryan White, by the way? Is it? I've heard it pronounced.
I believe
Rianne. It's Ryan.
Nobody yelled at me when I said Ryan. So
okay, yeah, that's right. All right, so I'm gonna go to Joel first. Joel's gonna tell us why. Well, Joel, go ahead with your take. You know what you have to say. You know what you have to do here.
I was the one time I ever really nerded out swimming is like I was watching Ledecky's 800, and then you can like pull up the Rio Olympics on your phone and just kind of hold them up, and it's just like those swims just definitely look different. So I know.
Sorry, what looks different? Yeah, what looks different to you?
I'm sorry, her stroke looks a lot different from Rio to what it is now. And so obviously I got all the great input from the commentators about her technique over and over and over again about the one beat kick and the kick in the 100. And then when her hand entered up, it's like just on stop. But when you look at it, if you look at how she's swimming right now, she is really breathing really high. So she'd almost hinge in her lower back on the right side, lift, rotate to the right for the breath, go down. And even the exhale didn't look the same as it did on Rio. So the cool thing is when they show that underwater video, you're seeing like their body position, you see the wake patterns. And then when they contrast it, the wake pattern was different, how she's breathing different, her body position, her everything in the water was different. And so that's why I sent you guys a text. I didn't know if she had like a sinus infection or something interfering with her breathing where she's having to breathe early like that. And having trouble exhaling, or if she's, put on a lot of muscle mass, or it's just basically for her, she's not going to come out and say that she can cruise through trials. It's no big deal, which could be the case too. But nonetheless, this it's a different looking stroke than she had just 4 years ago. And she looks a lot different in the water. So maybe it's so she can go down to the 100. She's kind of, put on more mass or something like that. But it's definitely affected her body position, and definitely her breathing was a lot different. And I think her tempo was a lot different too.
Okay. And by different, I just want to clarify what you mean. You think it looks worse?
I think it looks worse. I think it looks not nearly as good as it has. Yes. And so I know you want me, is the plane going into the mountain? It's like, the thing is, she flies so much higher than everyone else. She's not going to hit a mountain. Right. But is it going to be the same swim she had in Rio? Probably not. Not if it looks like this. It certainly won't be. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is the reason I've made you go out on Katie Ledecky is maybe not going to swim as brilliantly as she has before. Island it is really tough. I agree with you that she does look different swimming wise. I think that's irrefutable. Once I challenge everybody who's listening to this, get on, do the same thing Joel did, watch the races set side by side and look for some of the stuff we're talking about. Cause I see it. I see exactly what you're talking about. The tough thing, the two factors, and one of them you brought up, and just another one I want to add. The one is, it is hard to judge the fact that she really did not have to race. She didn't have to race brilliantly to make the team. Right.
Correct.
So, and she's definitely at that stage of her career where she's not like, if she was 16 years old, you could just tell a difference. Like, just look back at trials, look at some of the younger, and less experienced swimmers. Like they will just go for it in every race that they have.
Right
versus there's very, very few people who are good enough. And Ledecky is one of them where they can go like, okay, we don't need to go for it all out in this. Yeah.
It's like Tim Duncan regular season versus Tim Duncan playoffs. Kind of the same thing here. Where you're like, let's just pace ourselves a little bit.
Like Milton Berle, like just pulling out just enough to win. You know what I mean? Don't Google that, everybody. This is a family podcast. Anyway, the other thing with Ledecky is, aside from how she looks, I just think like, okay, who's going to beat her? Right. And the obvious answer, you look at Titmus down in Australia, who did a 3:56 at trials, a massive swim. But I think that Titmus still young, a little bit untested, hasn't always raced her best in the highest pressure situations. Ledecky is probably the most incredible racer we've ever had in the sport. So it's very hard to counter out in terms of maybe she's not physically all there and maybe it won't matter. Like maybe she's just so inhumanly tough and competitive that, and her best is good enough that even if she's a little bit off of it, she can just sort of will her way to victory. I certainly wouldn't count that out. But I do think there's something visibly different. Eric, do you want to join Joel on his take Island here?
Yeah, I agree with him. The way
on the bashing bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, just being able to be there and watching the race in person, and all the things that Joel was describing from afar with his phone next to the TV screen. It was all happening. You could see it. There was something uncomfortable about her swim, but again, we don't know what's behind that necessarily.
Right.
But yeah, 100%. There's something seems weird, and they've got a month to either tweak something very little. Obviously, they can't do a whole lot in the next month without totally jacking up things completely because Titmus is so close to her. But I mean, hopefully, if she decides to continue on to 2024, they can kind of rectify it. That breath keeps getting higher and higher. We're going to see some issues for even getting close to those times again.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't underestimate the Australians' ability to psych themselves out. I mean, they gave themselves less time this time to think about how much faster they are than the rest of the world. But, you know, there's still plenty of time for them to think about how much pressure they're under and what the tabloids are going to write about them if they don't do well.
Themselves many
far
right.
Yeah. Sydney aside, it's been a lot of broken dreams for Team Australia.
But with Ledecky, the thing is,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, the thing with Ledecky, it's like no one remembers like how fast a handful of people remember how fast Michael Phelps did every swim. Was it a gold medal? Cool. Same thing with Ledecky. It's like she could be slower, but she's going to win gold medals. And so that's not the issue. Again, the only thing that really pops up, also Simone Manuel says about overtraining, and we all know that COVID in California was a lot different lockdowns for everybody. And so this could be the first time her training has really ever been kind of compromised or up in the air at any point ever in her life. So it's a lot of uncertainty for every swimmer, but when their eyes on one swimmer like this.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go next because I want to give Erik the hammer here because that's what he deserves after the Ryan White thing. Here's my hot take. Within 2 years of this Olympics, so I guess what's that? What is that, a Pan-Pac year in 2022? So somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Michael Andrew will beat Caleb Dressel in the 50 free. That is my prediction. I told you guys both this over text after watching the 50 free. I just think, again, I watched the two of them side by side. I actually think that Michael Andrews, I like his sprint freestyle better than what Caleb's doing. It's obvious to me that Caleb is a more mature athlete, that he's definitely stronger and more athletic than Michael Andrew. And some of that is going to be harder for Michael to improve over the next couple of years than other parts of it. It's obvious that Caleb is a lot better off the start, but I think that, you know, he's still relatively young for a 50 freestyler. He's shown pretty good improvement here. And I think, you know, he's yet to have actually a really, really good 50. Like, I don't think that was a particularly, you know, 99th percentile swim for him, whatever, to go 21.4. So I think he's got a lot more in him. It does seem like, contrary to what a lot of people think, he put a lot of effort into being able to finish that 200. There were, as I said on Tuesday, there were a lot of people who thought like his 200 was totally cooked a few years ago, that he would never really be international caliber in a 200. That's wrong. But I think that Michael Andrew is going to continue to progress in the 50, and he's going to be very, very hard to beat within 2 years from now. And I think, you know, that's almost as bold as a Ledecky take, because we're talking about the best male swimmer in the world right now. And the event that maybe, at least in the US, he is known, you know, sort of originally for that sprint freestyle. But I think Michael Andrew is on a collision course, and I could see him doing that within 2 years. Joel, you got anything on that? Agree, disagree?
I'd like to. I saw the Canadian swimmer who's like God, was he 39 or something like that? Made
Brent
the team
Hayden.
in the 50 free.
Brent Hayden.
Yeah.
And so again, I kind of wonder I was just, as you're like, Caleb Dressel's range of events, he's not really focusing on that one thing. And so Michael Andrews' range of events, again, it very well could be. I haven't seen them swim side by side. It'd be interesting to see that. But like we've seen, like with Abby Weitzel and stuff, that start is so much of it. And Caleb Dressel's underwater ability and the breakout, it's so much of that. It's going to be, it's a bold statement. I don't know if he can do it in a couple of years, but it's definitely possible.
Right. I guess if you just waited until maybe Caleb Dressel wasn't swimming anymore and Michael Andrew was, then maybe you'd beat him. But, I'm trying to give it a time limit, and we'll see which one of them swims longer. It's not they're only 4 years apart. So it's not a given that Michael Andrew's going to swim, competitively at the international level for longer than Caleb Dressel either. Eric, what about you?
On this particular topic?
Yeah.
I don't disagree at all. I think there's far more room for improvement for Michael Andrew in the 50 than there is maybe for Caleb. We don't really know where Caleb was at necessarily in his training for trials. Right. But just looking at where both of their first 15 meters are, Caleb can get better, but that he's kind of really approaching, the top of his game there versus Michael Andrew clearly having a lot left in the tank for his first 15. But when you remove that first 15, Michael Andrew is swimming on top of the water as fast, if not faster than Caleb. And watching it side by side from just the side view, you can definitely tell that there's nothing lost after the first 15. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. See what's going to happen in the next couple of years.
All right, let's get to Eric's take, which hopefully, I think we would be remiss if we didn't address the Shane Casas thing just once on this podcast. Eric, I've specifically told you cannot make your hot take prediction that there will be an extra time trial provided to Shane Casas so that he can make the team. That was only a 400 free exclusive situation. They've selected two people with the FINA cut in the backstroke, so there's no more chances for him. What do you got, Eric?
Yeah. Well, not to rub it in that I was able to be on deck all 10 days. I was there in Omaha, being able to watch all the races.
Yep.
Some of it from the confines and the comfort of the practice pool area, and others, 12 rows up from the pool itself. But
yeah, very
in
jealous.
any event, one of the things that came through, and this is by and large, like throughout the whole meet, there it seemed in particular with him was that there was an over investment emotionally in the front half of the races where you were seeing people go out ahead of some of the veterans that we see in the events and just not have anything left in the tank emotionally or mentally. And that definitely weighed on them physically. Those of you who had the chance to watch every one of Ryan Murphy's races, all 6 of them, it was like somebody just punching in and punching out and going to work and just crushing everybody. That prelim swim in the 100 back was 26.3, 26.7. I watched it. It was insane. And then to watch him just blow everybody up in the 200 back, and it was no big deal. Like it was just another day at the office. His whole entire focus has been just getting to Tokyo and that being there. And you saw that some athletes were just trying to get it all done in the front half of the race and just not being able to do it. So if you can sort that out, 2024 could be a much different experience for him and a much tighter race for everybody because, it's there. The talents in, the work ethic, all that potential is there. It just has to sort it out for 2024. But first time around, actually having a legit shot at making the team, 52.7. On that 100 is just, it's hard. It's hard to say otherwise. It was just, It was a good meet, just not a great meet or not an epic meet like some have had.
And it shows you it shows you how hard Olympic trials is. I mean, is there another country where 52.7 is not good enough to make the Olympics in the 100 backstroke?
Nathan Adrian wins the 53 in Canada.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, I would say Nathan Adrian is a good example. You talk about that like professional sort of like clocking in. I mean, Nathan Adrian swam like right on everything he needed to do. I think he just didn't have that much better than a 21.8 in the 50 free in him for this meet, but he was hitting all his marks. It just wasn't quite there in the meet, and it does really show the challenge of U.S. trials. But what's your hot take, Eric? What do you got?
All right. You're making me skip all the good stuff that I want to be able to talk about, but we don't have 2 hours to talk about everything that happened.
Well, we can let Joel. We can let Joel. Let Joel go to the beach, and then you can give.
You're on vacation. I don't want to waste any more of your time. All right. We'll wrap it up here. The hot take that I have here is that we are going to see another situation like we have in the past with relays. I'm predicting that both Katie Ledecky and Simone Manuel will be on that first 400 free relay in some capacity, and that Caleb Dressel will be on the 800 free relay in some capacity. They're going to do it. They're going to do what they did in terms of the training camp. Simone Manuel, if she's able to rectify that 100 a bit over the next couple of weeks, it would be surprising to not see her on it at the very least. Ledecky on an unrested 100 free was 53.8. Earlier this spring. She has nothing that day, so she very well could just be a part of that relay to kind of get the juices flowing for Tokyo. But we are going to see those two for sure on that 400 free relay come Tokyo.
Yeah, I'm going to let Joel chime in on that because he may have to leave directly afterwards, and then I'll give my 2 cents.
Yeah, my phone's almost dead too. So first thing is obviously we let it slide, and don't mention that Eric Weiken is the first person ever to brag about being in Omaha for 12 days. So I just want that to be marked down right now on the tape. But I think a couple of things we talked about before the trials was with all these young swimmers is the emotional drain that it is. I mean, the adrenaline rush and then down and then up and then down. You see it all the time in every sport, like the NCAA basketball tournament where it's spread out over weeks like that. Teams that get too caught up in that wave, they always end up crashing. And you see that a lot, I think, with the swimmers too, when you have that kind of a schedule. And the pros like Ryan Murphy do well with it, but you see that a lot with the young kids where they made it in like one event. So this is one of the biggest amounts of times where people are qualifying in just one event. I think it's because you're trying to put so much emotional energy, everything with COVID into one swim like that. With the relays, the cynic in me is probably like, I'm sure NBC is going to be calling up and saying, this prelim swim, let's make sure we get Simone and Katie in there. Not that they don't deserve it, but part of it is there's got to be some entertainment factor, which obviously USA Swimming didn't know much about when they put this trials together. They finally get NBC to do the meet, and it's dull. It's like there's a swim. Now all of a sudden my TV's black for like how many minutes am I going to sit around here like this?
Right. And we get the Simone Biles ad 8 times per commercial break, apparently.
Yeah. Exactly. It's over and over and over again. It's like watching Nickelodeon with my kid. Like, how many times are we going to watch SpongeBob? It's the same thing. How many times are we going to watch her put this cream on? Jeez. So it just crushes my will to watch the sport. But I think when you get to the Olympics, I think part of it too is the entertainment factor. It's like we want to see some names on relays. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, the thing that is going to sneak up on a lot of Americans, which, should not be sneaking up on them because it's sort of been a long evolution, is that we're definitely in trouble in some of these relays for contention. And I could see the addition of, for instance, you talk about Ledecky and Simone on the 4x1. I could see that just as like a dice roll. It's like, okay, we need to do something to shake this up. I mean, at least with Simone, you have the possibility, you have somebody who has gone a 52 low on a relay split previously in their career. And that's sorely, sorely needed for this US relay. So it may you know, it may work, it may not, it may come off as completely unfair or completely justified. I don't really know. That's not a hill I'm willing to die on. But I could certainly see it. Like I look, if I put myself in the coaching shoes, I would certainly be looking for reasons to put Simone on that relay just for the hope that she's going to step up and produce something fast. And maybe, you know, we'll feel like, okay, maybe she's overtrained. We can rest her, and we've got time to address that and just let her loose on this relay. Okay, Joel, we're going to let you go. And then
see you guys.
Eric, I'm going to give you space now. Give me all of your other, as the lone man, as Joel said it, to brag about spending 12 days in Omaha. Give us some of your other highlights, thoughts, views, observations from the poolside there at the meet.
I think a lot of these newcomers that, particularly on the women's side, we're going to see a lot. I feel like if they can ride this out, get through training camp and get to Tokyo and keep their head on straight like they did in Omaha, a lot of these newcomers that we saw here in Omaha making the team and kind of quote unquote sneaking in are going to grab medals. I think at this point, a lot of them are playing with house money, and they're at a point where there's zero expectation amongst any of them. And Rhiannon White being another one of those, you know, Phoebe Bacon in that 2-back, like that was a huge shocker of a race. Nobody would have predicted the world record holder not making it on the team, but those two, you know, they're going to be the 200 backstrokers for this country. But that's not that much. I mean, that's a lot of weight added to it, but there's not that much beyond that, because there could be that whole chip on the shoulder. Nobody expects us of anything. You know, we're not supposed to be here, but take that in a positive light. I think they have some of the right coaches to maybe be able to utilize that experience. Somebody like, you know, what seems like Todd DeSorbo has been coaching with a chip on his shoulder since the time that he's gotten in there, able to manipulate and play some of that information and really be able to boost their confidence to go into that. Alex Walsh in that 2IM, that 2IM is wide open. We saw Melanie Margalis not make either IM. And there's certainly a lot of opportunity for these women who have kind of, like I said, snuck into this team to really make the most of it, because those expectations really aren't there. And Melanie Margalis was a fantastic teammate post races. Like, I just being a top-notch person from top to bottom as it was, and just having that reiterated while being down on the practice pool. And the other thing that was a surprise was, if we would have had time, listing all the names of all of the experienced people who, for whatever reason, didn't make it. We have no idea why. It's Comerford and Cox and Dahlia and Adrian and Held. And Miller. There's easily 12 people that should have been on this team, quote unquote, that weren't.
Right.
And then the last experience that I had was trying to convert some people into not instantly hating on Michael Andrew with regards to the 100 breast and the 2IM and how they finished. And it's like, one of the things that so many people forget about this is that this is a gigantic meet, and you're not that person and you're not in that situation. So when Michael Andrew died on the end of that 100 breast, that was literally the biggest race of his entire life thus far. That was the whole reason behind going pro. It was all of the motivation, and then all of the emotion, and trying to dial that in. And we really didn't get a lot of insight necessarily into how exactly that played out. But the reality is that he won. We make all this hullabaloo about the Olympics, and it's about the gold medal and not the time. But then when it comes to that race, there was on deck amongst people I was talking to, it was the opposite. It's like, well, he died. Well, he almost didn't win. I was like, well, it still said number one next to his name. Right? And same thing with the IM. Another guy telling me there's no way he's finishing all three of these IMs. That freestyle is going to bite him in the butt. And it's just like, let it play out. Like,
Right.
it's like he doesn't have the background. It's like he's going to do more 200 pace. He's going to be able to evolve and adapt. And because he doesn't have a decade of 100,000 K a week, that maybe he's in a better place to do that stuff. And then the last thing about MA, and this is something that I will give Braden Keith some credit for, is just being able to read the articles when he was younger and be in the Midwest, is that all of his best times and all of his nag records had a very common theme. The front end was way out, and then the back end fell off. But then over time, the back end matched up with the front end. So it seems like those naysayers either weren't reading that or paying attention, or trying to ignore the fact that his front end is sharp. There's nobody faster than him in the first 3 quarters of that 2IM. And he's got a month to bring in, like I said, that 50, 0.4 of a second.
I said on the podcast on Tuesday, I don't know that he even needs to improve his freestyle that much, really.
No, not at all.
I mean, look, I think maybe part of me would love to just see him get that much faster in the first 150 and still, come in at 29 high, 30 point on the freestyle, and just, sort of like big FU to everybody that's looking at that race and going like, whoa, but he didn't finish well. I think it's like such a silly criticism. I will say I had a heated Michael Andrew argument in the office today, and I want to pitch it to you. You can tell me what you think. The argument was basically, the other end of it was, if there's somebody who was doing 10 800s every day, and that was all they did for a workout and no dry land, and, wouldn't that person get criticized so much more than Michael Andrew? And I kind of thought, like, if that person was the best 1500 swimmer in America, I kind of think there would be a lot of people who'd be like, see, you got to do 10 800s every day. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Kids these days don't want to do any work. Like, you should do, or probably a better comparison would be somebody doing an outrageous amount of volume, because 10 800s is kind of in line with what are probably, that's only 8,000 yards. There's plenty of places that do 8,000 yards for
certainly for a miler.
Yeah, for 2-hour practice. So maybe it'd be like somebody who just did 12 1000s, every practice or something.
And
go ahead.
Working on the back end or whatever, it's like, that whole, well, if he did more volume, it's like, so Michael Andrew's going to do 2,200 IMs on 20 seconds rest, and that's somehow going to benefit his freestyle and not do anything to his flyback or breast. And it's like, maybe we're not swimming the 2IM to the best of our knowledge and the best of our ability. We treat the 100 IM, like, I think we had this in a conversation, we treat the 100 IMs of 50. Like, these are just 25s as fast as you can. Why are we treating the 2IM? Because of the change of stroke and the change of the musculature that you're using. We need to be treating this more like, a 100. And we're seeing somebody do that, like legitimately do that for the first time. And it really tweaks people, because it's not what once was. It's not traditional. It's not normal, and I don't like it. So I'm going to crap on it. And you need somebody like him to do this. There's no way we're going to go under 154 flat if we don't have somebody who's going to go out that first 150 and then hold on and then just work on that last 50. And he seems to be doing it.
Well, so maybe we could. I don't, it's like, I want to pretend at least that I would be agnostic about it. Like, that if there was somebody who, broke the world record in the 100 freestyle 46.9, if they went 46.8 and they went, 23.0, 23.8, that I wouldn't be going, or they need to work on their speed more. Like, they don't have enough speed. Like, I'd be like, wow, that's really freaking impressive. That guy just swam faster than anybody.
Yeah. Then they better be a 140, 200 free.
Yeah, no, just like, that's awesome. Like, that's super fast. And I just think, like, here's a 22-year-old kid who's actually, I have another thing I wanted to think about. And that's while we're triggering everybody about Michael Andrew, has Michael Andrew shown more improvement from 18 to 22 years old in the 200 IM than Michael Phelps. Somebody who's listening to this, look it up. But I would guess yes. I think he was about 159 4 years ago, and now he's at 155. Michael Phelps got to a really good level by 18. I'm not sure he improved that much from that point forward. And so you got to give him some credit for continuing to move forward and develop in a 200 long course. Not easy, not a very competitive event where a lot of people are trying a lot of different things to be really, really fast.
And for his coach to be insistent on him doing it, like his dad, his coach, has been adamant about him being a 200 IMer above all else. Yeah. And he's been kind of reluctantly going along with the conversation in interviews about being a 200 IMer. But I think at this point, he's really just completely bought into the idea that he's going to be an amazing 200 IMer for at least the next 3 years, if not 7.
All right, I got you off track. You got anything else, Eric?
Other than that, I think some of the biggest takeaways from this meet that I saw was just the amount of amazing support that some of these athletes had in the background. And just for those, and we're talking to a group of people that understands that this really is a team sport, but it was further illustrated in being able to be in that space between the stairs coming down and then the short walk to the practice area. It just, the outpouring of love and affection and adoration for their teammates, and just being there and seeing some kids who didn't have a lot of teammates still getting some of that support. Like for example, with Lydia Jacoby, the lone breaststroker from the state of Alaska, all of her future college teammates that were at that meet came down and were cheering her on, and the same thing with Regan Smith and Stanford. Just a whole lot of support, and it was just really fun to see a lot of the stuff that you don't necessarily always get to see on the national broadcast, involving Rowdy and yelling at the line on the bottom and reading to the right. You miss all of the good stuff that happens in the background. It just seeing athletes rebound and being there down in the bowels of that place and watching Simone walk off that 100 free, it just being beside herself, and then being able to navigate the next few days and be able to get her hand on the wall, and you could feel the relief come out of her lane when she turned around and saw that finish and that one next to her name. So just an incredible experience to be a part of.
Yeah, Eric, you're right. I am very jealous just listening to you describe all that stuff. So here's hoping that in 3 years we don't have a pandemic and Jersey Wahoos just qualifies a boatload of swimmers for Olympic trials, and I can find some way to get myself included in the group of people that goes there, because it was tough. It's tough watching at home. I know a lot of people who maybe gotten used to being there too, who were in the same boat as me. We got a flavor of it watching the races from home, but let's hope that swimming's sort of biggest every 4-year domestic party. Not very few of us are going to get to go to the Olympics, but Olympic trials is an awesome show in the world of swimming, and let's hope that it's on full display again in 3 years. We don't even have to wait 4 years. Thanks for coming. Thank you to everybody for listening, and we'll be back next week with just some lukewarm takes. Okay, we can't do hot ones.
Thanks, Chris.
See ya.